One of the things I feel like it was like I was having like a complete career breakdown when I was let go from my job. And then and nothing, like absolutely nothing was coming through or coming to fruition.
Welcome to the Reminder Remedy podcast. I'm your host, Alena Conley, a personal development expert and coach. This podcast is for leaders, innovators, and culture shifters. We explore personal growth, leadership development, and the journey towards a fulfilling life with the aim of leading ourselves to effectively lead others. Through insightful interviews, discussions, and inspiring stories, we unlock the secrets to a better existence and a better world. Whether you seek inspiration or practical guidance, I'm here to remind you of your incredible potential, because everything you need is everything you got. Let's get into it. Okay, really quickly, guys, before we hop into today's episode, I need 2 favors from you. If you are listening right now, click that plus sign for you to follow the show. This really helps us to pop into the algorithm of other and new listeners. Number 2, if you are not already subscribed to my weekly newsletter, you are missing out. Every Monday, I send out a newsletter called Monday Musings. This is where I share all of my popular links from what I'm reading, the podcast that I'm listening to, what I'm watching, must-haves, productivity hacks, random storytelling. We have been doing this for about 2 months now, and it's been a ton of fun. So if you're not subscribed, head over to thereminderremedy.com/newsletter to get subscribed today. All right, welcome back to The Reminder Remedy. I am your host, Alena Conley, and today I am joined by one of my very good friends, Dontaira Terrell. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited. I can't believe this is your first time on the show. Last time we were together, you were interviewing me, and that was super fun. But today, I am interviewing the journalist.
Yeah, that was what, for your anniversary, right?
Yes, it was for my 1-year anniversary, and that was what, like 2-3 years ago. So can you believe that?
So we about to be approaching 5 years.
Yeah, because I started this in 2020. So
wow. Okay.
But I actually started the podcast 8 years ago, but started the coaching company in 2020. So yeah, it's been fun. But I'm excited to have this conversation because I am just, first of all, I've been doing this thing where I've been like giving everybody their flowers up front, because I just know so many dope people, but you are just like really top 3. Like, you just killing it these days. I was just going back through your list of people that you've interviewed, and I can't even keep up at this point. Tyler Perry, Pat Rowland. Didn't you interview like Issa Rae?
I did. Yes.
I remember that day we were like in the group chat, and I was like, really? You couldn't have put me like in the wingman, could have been in the side room, because I love Issa. And so I just think that what you've been doing with your career is amazing. I also love that you always look out for people. Like Dontaira has gotten me so many opportunities, and so many other people to just really put our work into the world. And then with your most recent opportunity, or not opportunity, but your most recent purchase of your hometown newspaper, the Buckeye Review, let's get some snaps and hoorays around that. That is just like super dope. And we'll get into all the details of that. But I'm just so proud of you. So congratulations. You're killing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, I'm proud of you too. I'm proud of you for creating this platform. And you have had some heavy hitters too. And you're helping women like with their overall well-being and just establish themselves, be more confident and bold in themselves. I remember it was a time when I needed your advice, and you surely reminded me, just like you did now, of my worth, of my value, of all of the talent that I had inside of me. It just started with me. So thank you for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually where I want to start our conversation, because one of the things that I was thinking about this morning when I was in the shower, because before my podcast interviews, I always go through my stuff in my head in the shower. And I was thinking about how one of the last times we got to spend some intimate time together, and that was, I want to say 2018. you were in LA at the time. I was pregnant with Creed, who's now 5. And you were just in this transition period. I think you had just moved from Miami, living with your sisters, and you were just like in this discovery period. And I remember we were like sitting on the couch and you were just telling me like all the things that you had been dealing with. And we went to brunch and I was just like giving you like all of my mind, like, you need to get on this spiritual journey. You need to figure out your life. LA is the perfect place to do that because the vibrations are high, or so I've heard. And I just feel since that conversation, that was like exactly what you did. Like you really went through like this transformative journey. And so I would love to know from you, like, what has gone on like in the last 5 years in your life?
Just like you said, it's been a whole like transformative journey and just like self-discovery journey. I started incorporating um meditation into like my daily routine. I started taking my therapist much more like serious in terms of how sometimes you'll go to therapy, you'll be like, oh no, I'm fine. Oh no. And then once I just let down those walls and actually express myself and told her what I was truly feeling, in terms of the transformative stage, when I lost my mom, my faith was a little shattered, if you will, for a few
Mm-hmm.
years. So I completely
Mm-hmm.
abandoned that, but I got back on my faith journey as well. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
helped me tremendously also because I know that I can't do this thing by myself called life. It clearly was a higher being watching over me, protecting me, guiding me, and just keeping me on the right track. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
once I started reestablishing and not seeing everything so black and white, knowing that there's room for error as well, I think that within the last 5 years has helped me. And then also trying not to force things. You know how sometimes if I didn't get an interview, like I tried to interview Issa Rae several times before, and then the opportunity just presented itself as opposed to keep trying to beat down that door. It was like, hey, we
Mm-hmm.
see what you're doing. Can you interview Issa Rae? So it was also
Mm-hmm.
like not taking different things personally, whether it was
Mm-hmm.
in that professional space or that personal space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's, yeah. And then just in terms of the professional journey, I was managing editor for 2190, a writer for USA Today, a lot of their special edition magazines. I've been writing for BET, Revolt, Shondaland. So it's just been like a lot of various opportunities that I've been afforded these last 5 years.
Yeah. So we're going to dig into all of that. All right. So I don't know. I know. So this is the thing that y'all need to know. Me and Dontaira are like actually really close friends. This is like one of those interviews where I had Sharice, Maya, Chloe, Melissa, and I like really get into it. This is like one of those interviews. So this is not one of those conversations where it'll be very surface. We're going, and so with that being said, Dontaira, I know that you probably haven't listened to the podcast because, like most friends, don't even know what friends do for a living. And
Though I share a lot.
you're like, go listen to my friend's work. I think that she's like a coach or something. So on my podcast, one of the things that I am very good at, or that I tend to do for my listeners, is I like to take the interviews and look at it as like an onion and like really pull back like the layer so that we can get to the technical side of an understanding from a practical standpoint what that looks like. So what you said a lot right now, and so I want to start with some of the grief parts of it, right? Because that's where life turned for you, I think. I don't even know if that's where it started. And you tell me. So, one of the things that I know happened was your mom passed. What year did your mom pass? 2014?
2014, yes.
Okay. And so, would you say that 2014 is where things started to shift for you, or was it before that? Because I feel like, just based on our friendship, there was also like a period in New York where you were like, okay, things are not going well with my career and I need to figure it out.
I was waiting for you to finish. I was just gonna say that. I was like, it was
Okay.
actually a little before that. I feel like it was
Okay.
like the stepping stones to get to that point with my mom's death. And my mom's death, just that was
Yeah.
like yeah, the no.
So it's like when it rains, it pours, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's
Yeah.
probably people listening and they're like, okay, just when you think, okay, I've hit a place, I'm rock bottom, and then life is just, no, fuck that. It's about to get hit. Like you about to hit hell bottom.
Yes.
So talk to me about, I feel like, especially I've had friends who have had death. I've recently had friends in the last couple of years who've lost spouses and have grieved, and because they've had children, have had to hold it together. But one of the things that I witnessed with you was that you didn't really try to hold it together. Like, it was very much like, I'm grieving. Like,
Yeah.
I do not feel good. Like, I lost my mother. I don't want to get out of bed. And as we're in May, we're recording this in May, which is Mental Health Awareness. Can you, without me trying to make you too vulnerable, but vulnerable enough for you to be relatable, talk to me about what that period of your life felt like?
Oh gosh. Okay. So that period of my life, everything was good. And when I say good, my mom was still in my life. We were in September. So I'll say like the last week in September, we went to DC for a family friend's anniversary. They were celebrating 40 years. So we had a great time in DC. And then when my mom dropped me off, her and my father dropped me and my sister off at the airport, that was the last time I saw my mom. So that was on a Sunday. And then on a Monday is when everything, whole life changed. And we didn't find out about everything until I would say Tuesday. And I'm saying that because so my mom was at a red light coming home from work. She was going to get some McDonald's coffee. She did a little detour before stopping home to get her some McDonald's coffee. She was at a
And
red
their coffee is amazing, by the way. Mama, I understand. As a coffee drinker.
light. And so when she was sitting at the red light, a car didn't see her, that she was stopped, didn't see it was a red light, and rear-ended her. But the force and the magnitude of the crash was so severe that immediately it snapped her neck on impact, and her
Mm,
seat broke back. And
mm,
she was okay at the crime scene. She was talking and everything. But then they said, when she said, "Oh my goodness, I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my feet. I can't feel anything," she went into a coma.
mm,
And so from there, it was a 14-month journey. I moved back home, and my mom was in and out of different rehab facilities as well as
mm,
hospitals, but also never being my mom, not able to communicate the way we in terms of verbally communicate.
mm,
Communicate one blink for yes, two blinks for no. She was on
mm,
ventilators for a lot of period of time, learning how to breathe again. She was paraplegic from the neck down, and she had traumatic brain injury, which is ironic because my mom's whole career was being a nurse for traumatic brain injury victims.
wow.
So yeah, so that was her whole. So a lot, we were able to get educated because she has so many books and notes. So we were sometimes going in there telling the doctors no, because when this happens, she does this and da da da. So we know. So being huge advocates for my mom, like at one point in time, and I still actually do in terms of like kind of PTSD. I don't think people understand the severity. Like when I moved home, we were staying the night in the hospital. I also had to become like a caretaker, and I feel
Mm-hmm,
like that growing up point, even though I was
mm-hmm,
already grown. But me and my dad and my sisters, we were taking turns going to the hospital. Okay, I gotta cook. We gotta go grocery shopping. Okay, we got to do these bills. So I was like doing the books, and it was just all kind of stuff. Also, just
mm-hmm,
caring for my mom at the hospital. But I remember one time vividly when I was sitting there and her monitor started beeping,
mm,
and everybody just came rushing in here. She had flatline. And while I was sitting there, and then I swear to goodness, it was like a Grey's Anatomy scene, a whole movie. They usher you out, you trying to ask a question, you like scream, like I started crying, screaming. They shut the door, shut the curtains, and I'm like, oh my god! And they just all rushed in there. So I still have those moments, or even when just being at a red light, or being at a stop sign, or even like cars behind me, I'm like afraid or fearful that someone's gonna
mm-hmm.
be very extra cautious of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So then after 14 months, and when I tell you we fought hard to get her in different kind of rehab facilities and everything. One of the last ones, we were literally ready to pick up our whole life, move to Pittsburgh, move to Houston, move to Atlanta, the cities that had those institutions that could treat her. But the last time I think we went to Pittsburgh, and then after the fifth no, because that was 14 months in the making, it was finally we took her to hospice, and I can't remember how long she was there. But looking back, I think one of the things is I feel like I was might have been a bit selfish in my approach, because when she went to hospice, I didn't go see her. So I didn't see my mom when she passed away. I saw her after she
Mm,
passed. And I'm
mm,
sure now that I'm reading, one of the things is that they want people to loved ones, or even animals, loved ones, they want those people around them. So they're probably like looking for you, like, where are you? And so I
mm.
wasn't there. So I saw her after she passed away,
And why
because
did you make that choice? Why do you think you made that choice?
I was so angry, and I was so confused and just like heartbroken and devastated. And no, this couldn't be happening. So yes.
And so the decision to, or the fight, the 14-month fight, was that, do you feel like your family fought for you? Or was that like a collective hope from the doctor? Or what was the decision that kind of made you all go through the different rehab facilities?
Hope and faith, because we knew we could turn this thing around.
Yeah,
And it wasn't about like people; it was about a higher power, and miracles
yeah,
happen every day.
yeah,
So I think that was like part of it.
yeah,
And just fighting for my mom, like because we would want somebody to fight for us, like fight to the very end. Don't let one person tell you. Just like I feel like in your career, your day to day. Okay, we talking to the wrong person. This is the wrong doctor. We can talk to
right.
somebody else. You're not giving us what we need or what we want, and that's okay. You probably, because one of the things was in terms of like bedside care and manner, we had some really great people, but then we also
Yeah,
had the ones who, I've seen a million cases like this. Just wrap it up. You say your goodbyes. And
right.
then I remember my dad going in with the doctor. Oh no, you may have seen 1,000 or a million cases like this, but I don't have 1,000 or a million wives, and my kids don't have 1,000 or a million mothers. This is one person. This is Alena Terrell,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now that, when you think about the transition and becoming the adult through that, what were the things that you then had to do to move your life forward, right? Because I I've heard so many versions of it. It's never the same. Like, you can never feel that whole, but you just learn to move through the motions. What has that been like for you?
a roller coaster. Ooh, let's see. It has been, I feel like every stage of grief that you could possibly think of, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, and whether it's, I'm going to find joy in the pain, or, I'm happy that I was able to spend the years that I did get to spend with my mom, or
Yeah.
just beauty in the pain. That bird came to me. That's my mom. Or if a
Hmm.
song comes, and I'm like, Mom, like it's definitely been a journey, and it's also even at times resentful. I know in my early stages of grief, I was definitely very resentful of people who still had their mothers in their lives. Like
Hmm.
I'm jealous because I'm like how does this work? And happy, and I'm like, and then at
Hmm.
the time, that's when a lot of my friends were getting married, a lot of my friends were having babies, a lot of my friends were just going through that next stage of life. And I felt in the months prior to that, my mom and I were just getting to that stage of, okay, like I'm talking to her about dating, I'm talking to her about just different things like that I normally wouldn't talk to her about at all, actually giving me advice. And I'm like, oh, look at here, I did become one of your little friends. Just to have
Hmm.
like people, just seeing other people be able to have their mother for their first pregnancy and talk to them about motherhood, your body changes, friendships or relationship changes, or those first few years of marriage, all those different things. And I'm like, I don't have
Hmm.
that. So
Yeah. One of the things that I've always admired about you and your family dynamics is your relationship with your sisters. And your sisters are much older than you. And I've had the pleasure of recently establishing a closer relationship with one of your sisters because we worked on a project together. And even with dealing with her, I'm just like, oh, this is just so cool to have an older big sister, because me and my sisters are basically like ghetto triplets. Like, literally, we're all the same age. There's a period where literally we're all the same age at the same time. So it's just super ghetto. But anyways, so how did that like, how, and it seems like y'all have always, I know you always said that your sisters were like, they helped raise you, but after that experience, like, how did that even affect your relationship with them or enhance it?
I would say it was a little bit of both. I'll say affect because we were all trying to deal with grief in our own various ways, and some were more expressive about it than others. So I feel like in that sense, yes, but then also enhanced because we tried to do things that would bring us closer, in terms of connecting with our mom. So like we made it a point to just do stuff to continue honoring her legacy. In terms of my mom loved flowers, so we started taking bouquet making classes together,
Hmm.
and one of us might have a breakdown, one of us might cry, and then we'll start like talking about it and everything. And then but then also just realizing that unfortunately life goes on and they all have their own different families.
Hmm.
So I might get mad, I can't believe you didn't react this way to this, but My one sister has 3 kids, a husband, a full-time job. So it was just like I can't. But also, I'm single, no kids, no husbands. I have a lot more. I had not a lot more time on my hands, but I didn't have like life didn't just hit me in the face. Okay, I got these kids to take care of. I have a husband and things like that. I would say it definitely, but also definitely enhanced the way we look at life. That is like
Yeah.
something for all of us, like in terms of how we look at life in
Hmm.
general. Made me be more appreciative even of my sisters and them, my nieces and nephews and
Yeah.
their motherhood journey. I was a bit more understanding, like, oh, okay, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like you're like the best auntie. Like you just show up for them, which is another, to me, this other role of motherhood that sometimes can be underplayed, but it's just so valued. And so shout out to you for being an amazing auntie.
Shout out to the
So one of
aunties.
the things that you mentioned was meditation. So what
Mhm.
form of meditation do you practice?
Actually, when I do like meditation, it's a variety of different, I'll say wellness methods. Whether I'm just putting on, I'll go to YouTube or I'll go to Apple Music and put on like a 10-minute morning meditation or just evening meditation and just lay there or sit there. It could be as
Mhm.
simple as 5 minutes. You're like, okay, I needed that. So I will listen to like meditations, whether it's about having a great morning, having a great day, or, tapping into inner peace. Also, is a good form of meditation for me because once they do my pinpoints, I'm just there.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not leaving, I'm not there. So I often meditate in that way as well.
Yeah.
And then I also think, even though it's moving, I go for like daily walks. And I think that's a form of meditation as well, just because
Absolutely.
it does help calm my mind. It does help me bring a sense of ease. And it's just like my time for me.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
just being able to observe the different things that surround
Mhm.
me, whether it's like I said, I was talking about the bird. I'm like, why is this blue jay following me? But I
Mhm.
was having a bad day. And then I looked at what blue jays mean. It was like, oh, they're trying to send you a message. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So at what point did you feel like you were, because I feel like you went from just taking a much needed break to then you started picking back up some projects slowly and then the career just started like taking off. So what was that like? Like how did you ramp that up? Because I think that a lot of people go through life periods where they either experience burnout, grief, people go through like a postpartum period where they take a break, and then they may be ready to jump back in and have a breakout season that's like similar to what you're in now. So what was that like for you?
Okay, well, let's rewind because we briefly touched on it in terms of before my mother's passing. And
Mm-hmm.
so, one of the things I feel like it was like I was having like a complete career breakdown when I was let go from my job. And then and nothing, like absolutely nothing was coming through or coming to fruition. All these contacts or people I thought I had, I can't help you, sorry. And then also just in terms of having to be on unemployment. But then it was like I would have these like breakthrough moments, like when I was on the game. And I'm
Mm.
like, oh, if y'all know.
Shout out to the sunbeams.
Right, shout out to the Cubbies. I'm like, so it will always give me like a glimmer of hope, and then I'll always be humbled again. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, but now and working. So it was like a career breakdown. And then when I had to move back home, luckily, a friend of ours, Ashley, she was working at BET. She put me in contact with one of the editors, and so I was able to stay afloat just in terms of being home and just becoming a staff writer, a contract writer for BET. And
Mm-hmm.
they worked around my schedule because I'm taking care of my mom, going to the hospital, sitting with her, going through doctor's visits and things like that. And then it just went back downhill after my mom's death because also, to your point, I was not getting out of bed. I was not doing anything
Mm-hmm.
with my life, but sitting and grieving and crying and thinking and just in my thoughts and my feelings. Um, and then I started slowly but surely, I would say, putting myself out there, but knowing
Mm-hmm.
that it was like I still was getting every no that there was and is.
And what
Um,
did putting yourself out there look like?
I started just in terms of pitching again, like pitching stories or actually coming back into the fold, into the know. Oh, this person has a new book. I'm going to reach out to.
Today's podcast episode is brought to you by Audible. Everyone is always asking me, Alena, how do you read so many books? And I have always responded, Well, I finally crossed over and started adapting to audiobooks, and I do that through Audible. Audible lets you enjoy all your audio entertainment in one place. You'll always find the best of what you love or something new to discover. If you open up my audiobook library right now, you'll see that I've tuned into Dr. Anna Limbeck's Dopamine. If you open up my audiobooks right now, you'll see I've tuned into Dopamine Nation, Good Insights, Essentialism, which I shared with you guys that I've reread for the 8th time, and Dr. Arthur Brooks From Strength to Strength, and the list goes on. You'll also discover exclusive Audible originals from top celebrities. One of my favorite books, or one of my favorite audiobooks, was Will Smith's autobiography, where he entertained me thoroughly every day when I was able to tune in. You'll also hear from renowned experts and exciting new voices in audio. Members get full access to a growing selection of included audio. Members also get full access to a growing selection of included audio. Members also get full access to a growing selection of included audiobooks, Audible originals, and podcasts. You can download or stream our included titles all you want. You can download or stream their included titles all you want. The Audible app actually makes it easy to listen anywhere, anytime, while traveling, working out, walking, doing chores, you decide. So as a commuting mom, as I go up and down the road, it makes those 4-hour drives a breeze. New members can try Audible for free for 30 days by using my link. Visit audibletrial.com/Alena. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Alena.
And just so that we're clear, we didn't actually say what you do. So can you tell people what you do for a living?
Yes. So I am a journalist, storyteller. I write a lot of lifestyle content. I cover a lot of major events or do a lot of red carpets. And I also do a lot of interviewing with various celebrities. And like it was mentioned earlier, we named a few, but I'm also I forget sometimes too. I've interviewed Melissa McCarthy, Octavia Spencer, Demi Moore, Queen Latifah, Felicia Rashad. I'm like, Tyra Banks. It's so many. Russell Westbrook, Nikki Giovanni. I'm like, I can't keep track either. But yes,
Yes.
it's been a journey in the road.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So
So back, you started, somebody got a new book coming out, you'll pitch that.
yes, I'll do different things like that. And I was writing for free a lot, but just for the opportunity to get myself back out there, get my name back out there, get the invites coming back in, rolling back in, and also just creating and establishing those relationships even more. Um, and then I would say I started, I'm like, it's been such a journey because I'm like, it hasn't been like a straight line. It's been like
Linear.
up, down,
Exactly.
round and
Exactly.
round, and then step back, step forward. So
Right.
it's been like a whirlwind. But then I also started when I moved to LA. One of the things I wanted to do was be on television. So also I started investing back in myself. I was doing that when we were living in New York. So I started enrolling in different on-air camera classes. I enrolled in different creative writing courses to just help build up my vocabulary and also just learn different forms and techniques of writing, informal, whether it's formal, whether it's conversational, different things like that. And that was also helping me get out the house and meet other people who were in my field or like-minded. Kind of, I would say, in a sense, I was using them as a way to encourage myself. So they were supporting me unknowingly because I needed it.
Right.
So those were like some of the ways I started putting myself back out there for casting calls just to see
Hmm.
what it would do.
Why
And
did
then
you move to LA? What was the decision? Was it because you wanted to be in television and that's like the spot, or what was that decision?
it was so I always wanted to move to LA. And then every time I
Okay.
was supposed to move to LA, something happened. But then after my mom passed, I'm like, we just gonna make it do what it do. Life is too short not to just at least give it a try. You know, I feel like you can't if you I just didn't want any regrets. So I wanted to move to LA and I knew my mom. I was like, my mom would fully support this decision. Also, just knowing that a lot of things that my mom wanted to do in her life, she wasn't able to do, that she um, oftentimes like spoke about even in her 60s. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I said trying to reconnect. Even in her 60s, she still talked about a lot of things that she should have did, could have did, would have did. So I just felt, okay, mom, this is you working through me. And so we're going to move to LA. We're going to try to give this a shot. One of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to pitch a pilot. I wanted to script writer, which I still want to do.
Okay.
So I have a script kind of in the making, but also when you're in LA and you're around those people, they have the resources, they have the knowledge, they have the tools and skill sets. I've never been a television writer before. So just me being there, having coffee, let's do a powwow session. Okay, let's rent this room in the library and let's go back and forth. How do you do character development? I'm missing a plot. Okay, so I need a character arc. You know what I'm saying? Just learning those different dynamics. It was a lot easier to connect with those people in terms of the
Okay.
television field, in terms of the writing field. So yeah, so that was part of my reasoning for wanting to move to LA.
Okay. So when you
So
got out there, how was that?
it was a wake up call.
What happened, girl?
It was great. I feel like LA is great for what it is, for what it's worth. I do love LA, but I think I do want to move back to LA, but I think my expectations are a little bit different. Like I said, a lot of people who I encountered, you just have to be mindful of your space and know that everyone's not your friend. I feel like LA is a business transaction. It's all
Okay.
about associates and I went into it like, oh hey, I'm new here. They're like, yeah, okay, great. What can you it's like a business transaction. What can you do for
Okay.
me? And then when they saw I couldn't do anything or okay, next. So
Okay.
that was very hurtful. But also even in terms of getting into the different rooms, getting into the breaking down those doors was a bit challenging as well. But so I would say that aspect. But on the opposite end of that, you do have the ability to just go to the beach and you have all these different methods to calm your mind, to relax, just be so free. Like, you know what? Let's be a kid again. Let's go to the pier and just go skating and around, let's meditate on the beach. They have classes all day. So let's just be one with the beach, the waves, the water, and so in that sense, oh, amazing. Career sense, if you don't have a actual plan, it can definitely eat you up and spit you right back out, suck you
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah.
even in terms of the resources, like I said, just in terms of investing back in myself, making sure I'm out and about, different things like that, that costs. And if you get too caught up, then you might, like I said, it was a learning lesson. It was definitely a great journey. And like I said, I want to go back, but I feel like my mindset is a bit different. Like I know exactly what I want now and I have a clear plan and vision. Before I was just going with the flow, trying to figure it
Mhm.
out. But a lot of people I noticed who on television, they had like their plan and they stuck to
Mhm.
their plan.
And I think that is the beauty of kind of the evolution of a career and testing the waters is it feels like when is this gonna come, and then when it does I know like through the hell then you like I know what I want, and that's the season that I'm in. There's a lot of people. I just interviewed someone else last week and she was in that season, and I know what I want to do, I know what I don't want to do. I don't fully know 100% how it's going to get done. I do have access to certain resources, but I know what I want. And so, talk to me about that plan. What does it look like from here? What clarity do you have? Because you've now purchased this newspaper. It sounds like you have a vision for where your long term goals are. Like, where have you landed?
Oh, okay, for sure. So I think where I've landed, and I think also even in terms of going back to LA, my definition of success is a lot different than what it was prior. I think before it was very superficial.
Okay.
Now it's okay. How can I be a resource? How can I really truly leave a mark? How can I pour into people who poured into me? I want to be impactful. I don't want to just
Mm-hmm.
be or oh, it looks great on the gram. I want to
Right.
actually waves, make noise, and part of that. So with me purchasing our hometown newspaper, my sister and I, one thing let's do a story. Full
Mm-hmm.
circle moment. My sister actually was an intern for this newspaper 30 years ago for the
Okay.
previous owners.
And which
Um,
sister?
this is Zakia.
Okay.
Also, look, I guess you could say Zakia, you can credit her to introduce me to writing because I actually had my first byline in the paper as well. The same
Okay.
paper that I purchased when I was 9. She interviewed me, and then I interviewed some of my like fourth grade friends on their summer plans and what they were looking forward to in the upcoming school year, how they felt about
That's
turning
so
10.
fun.
Yes. So I had my first byline in there. And so a lot of things that we want to we want to do outside of the newspaper and the website is our extension is beyond that in terms of implementing the Journalism Institute, writers and journalists. As we just, a lot of times, what I didn't know who, what, when, where, really just figuring. So making it for to figure out and also like tools, resources, and skill sets to develop your career, as opposed to everything being like hush or figure it out. So that's one of the things we're working on, having different workshops, various workshops. And like I said, it's not just, although the paper is based in Ohio, we are actually in print in 200 cities across 26 states. And remind me to get your address so I can send you some. Add you to the list. So it's a lot of different things. And even with us in terms of my sister and I losing our mom, incorporating like that grief aspect. I also want to focus on create conversation starters so we won't have those taboo topics. And I feel like sometimes when it comes to grief, I do remember one time my little cousin passed away, and I busted out crying when I saw his mom and his sister. And I remember my one cousin was like, "Don't let them see you cry." I'm like, he's dead. It's our family. It's, what do you mean? No, don't cry. And I'm like, what? So it's okay to cry. It's okay to have a good cry. It's okay to grieve. It's okay, to your point, like how I told you, you knew I was not okay. Well, I also want to shed light again on those taboo topics and also create those conversation starters that have an intergenerational approach as well. So I think like when I think of success and just my footprint, I want it to be beyond me, if that makes sense. And I think before it was very selfish and it was just about me. How can I be on TV? I'm ready to walk the red carpet. I'm ready to be at the Oscars after party.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks to the model that I introduced in my coaching program. And this is really the season that we're in on the podcast, which is leading oneself so that you can then lead others. And so the life crafting model is all about going deep so that you can go wide. So it starts with kind of that self mastery, right? So it's that self discovery period. Who am I? What are my gifts? What are my superpowers? But then recognizing once I do spend time with self and understanding what my gifts are to the world, not just letting it reside for my own benefit, but then how do I use that to impact others, right? So what I hear is your gift is in journalism, is telling those stories, is give that radical information and those untouched topics or things that may be taboo out into the world. And so that's a level of impact. But then it's also thinking about the skill set that you've acquired, passing those skill sets on in a way that's more attainable to the next generation. So that's that going wide piece. And so I think that when we think about how one should live a good life, that's what it looks like, right? And I'm glad to hear that that is what you're doing, because that's absolutely incredible. And as I am continuing to spread my hosting wings, feel free to continue to drop the gems to me. Because I am a pseudo journalist and I don't have no extra time to go back to journalism school. So just send me the workbooks below.
I did want to say, for instance, look, because I think the story is amazing. And before I wouldn't have been into this story. I've been like, she's not famous or whatever. I'm not covering it. But we recently featured a woman named Danielle Metz. Barack Obama granted her clemency. So she spent 23 years behind bars for a nonviolent crime. They didn't find anything on her. But instead of focusing, because she's already having a tough time reintegrating back into society, I felt you already had that strike against you on, okay, what was 23 years of life behind bars? We did a story. Hold on, let me shameless plug right there.
Yeah.
We did a story in terms of discussing how she's taking full advantage of that second life that she's been given, being a pillar in her community, to college, obtaining her degree, also just in terms of fighting for, unfortunately, what is the reality of some, being behind bars or anything like that, as well as just even establishing that relationship with her adult children, because she's missed 23 years. So we're talking about like all the success and all the courage that she has acquired throughout the day-to-day, integrating back into society. So I feel like that's also in terms of impact, giving a voice to the voiceless, letting their stories be heard as well, but shining a spotlight on what others may be like, oh no, let's talk about years behind bars. No, let's talk about what you're doing now and the positive impact that you're having. So that's also in terms of
how you want to approach things.
Yes.
I love it.
Giving her that platform to be able to talk about it.
I love it. So I want to get some. So another thing that a lot of people tune in for is to acquire some business skills. So when you think about preparing for an interview, right? And again,
Mhm.
we've talked about all of the incredible people that you interview. What are some of the things that you do to get ready for an interview?
Um, okay, so a few things. One, so let's say it's a musical artist, and I think Nicki Minaj, I said this on one of her interviews. She went to an interview and she was referencing her new album that was coming out, and nobody had listened to the album. So she was like, "But y'all knew I was coming up here to talk about the albums, and nobody thought to let me
Listen,
just at least do one
Kelly
song."
Rowland literally just went off on Big Tigger on our local channel the other day about this movie. She was like, "Did y'all even watch the movie?" And they were like, "No, y'all didn't invite us." She was like, "I feel like we could have had a richer interview if y'all would have watched it." It was so embarrassing.
So like to that point, so if or a movie coming out, I always watch
Hmm.
it, listen to it, even if it's in past, even if I'm like, oh, they sent me the screener and I have an interview at 8 in the morning and it's midnight, even while I'll have it on in the background so I can get some nuggets or
Yeah.
anything like that. That's funny. I need to watch that interview. But yeah, so also interview Bia, the rapper Bia,
Hmm.
and I was listening to some of her music before the interview, and I referenced her
Yeah, I saw
lyrics.
that.
Yes. And she
You were
was
like,
like,
when you said yeah, I was crying.
okay, yeah, so
Look
that's
at me
funny,
doing my homework.
right? That part. See, so that's the same. But she was so impressed. Oh wow! But I used one of her lyrics to incorporate into it, like daily lives. I think she was talking about like one of her friends or like having
Hmm.
friends, and she used it as a bar. And I was like, okay, so tell me, what about your friends? I can't remember the exact.
Hmm.
She was very impressed by that. So that's
Hmm.
one. And also, just in terms of preparing for an interview, I try not to focus too much on you want if it's a campaign, if it's a movie, if it's a album, focus too much on that particular event because it's gonna pass. But I want the interview to be evergreen. I want it to be timeless.
Hmm.
Be able to come back and be like, now what did she say about womanhood?
Hmm.
Or if it's Mother's Day, let's talk about motherhood. And then I can also republish that or bring that back to the forefront the next Mother's Day
Mm.
still.
Right.
But also make sure you do get those nuggets for the movie because we celebrate anniversaries, 5-year anniversary. Take a look back. So I always try to think,
Mm.
and I also look at their Instagram pages. Sometimes I
Mm.
reference their captions and things like that. But I also, to Kelly Rowland's point, to get a rich interview, I want to go beyond the surface. I want to go beyond. So, how was it acting with such and such? I feel like those are like everyday questions as
Mhm.
opposed so tell me it is to your point it is Mother's Day weekend, it's mental health awareness month. How do you maintain your sanity when you just lost your mom? I know you
Mhm.
just had a baby, just different things
Mhm.
like that, like really tap into who they truly are at the core.
Yeah.
Those are some just
Do
different
you
things I do.
write down your questions?
I do.
Mhm.
But then but then also be another thing. Before I was very like, okay, so question one would never make sense. It would
Yeah.
be like they would give me a really good nugget, and I feel like it was a lot of missed opportunities because I'm like, okay, so question two, okay, so my
Right.
next question, I would stay to the list as opposed to feeding off of what they just said. As when you're like, actually, you just said something, and I want to take a step back to talk about
Mhm.
it for a second before we switch gears.
Yeah.
But I had to learn that because before, look, another interview, I watched Oprah and one of the college students were interviewing her. She was like, we gonna get to all your questions, but just talk to me. Just talk to
Right.
me.
Yeah, I feel like when I write down questions, I tend to look at them and try to get them in, and then I'm not listening as much. And so that's why I just try to think about my points in the beginning so that I can just be listening and then I can just have more topical stuff because otherwise I'm not listening. You know what I'm saying? And then I can't like, because, yeah, I have had interviews like that. So, what are like some of your favorite transitions? Because one of the things that I hate when I'm being interviewed is when I answer the question and somebody always just says, I love that. And then they just go to the next question. And I'm just like, girl, you gotta find a better transition.
Some although the interview is not about me, sometimes I try to put like a personal anecdote or make like light of it. So if they say
Yeah.
something, I'll be like, you know what? That was a good point, and I just experienced that. Look, speaking
Yeah.
to that point, I just experienced that. So thank you for bringing that up because
Right.
and then we'll do a little laugh, and then they say, okay, and I'll be like, okay, so with that being said, how do you feel about X, Y, Z? Or again, to the point, if they're giving me a timer on the side, you got 2 minutes. Okay, no, that was a great answer. Thank you so much. for letting us into your world in that aspect. I'm going to quickly shift gears to discuss XYZ like that. Or how do you feel about us talking about your new movie that's out? I don't know. Or how do you feel about us talking about you and your husband's 25th anniversary? What's the secret? They'll make a joke or I'll make a joke, but I don't know. I think it's caught up in the moment, or I caught myself doing a lot. Oh, absolutely. And I know they're like, girl, absolutely what? Like, I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So my next question.
What about the interjections? I feel like Oprah is like famously known for interjecting when people are saying something to ask like a deeper question. Do you ever do that?
No, I try to wait until they get finished, and then
Okay.
I will bring it back to what they said to try to
Got
get
it.
like a bit deeper.
I interject because I be thinking I'm Oprah.
And
I be like, but what did your mama say when she did this?
sometimes I feel like sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. I feel like it depends on the subject because
Yeah.
also you got to read the energy, feel the
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I try to do like icebreakers to be
Yeah.
like, okay, we're gonna do a fun quick round. Name the first thing that comes to the top of your mind when I ask you these questions, and
Yeah.
then they be like, oh, wait a minute, huh? Okay, and then it's like,
Loosens up a little bit. Yeah,
yes,
I can
yes.
imagine that. So, being that you do deal with so many different personalities, like how is that? Because I think that when it comes to my podcast, I have like way more selective. I can select who I want and I can read energy in advance. When you're working with certain publications, I can imagine that you don't really get to choose everybody based off of energy. So how do you connect with certain vibes and manage that?
Well, one thing that I can't remember who told me this, but just realizing that they're human just like us.
Hmm.
The interview subject. So, but before I used to always be nervous, and I used to, oh my goodness, and I felt like that also can read through the camera, like
Okay.
or through the phone. So just taking that approach, understanding that okay, I know they've probably been in interviews. It's press day, and they've been in interviews for 7 hours, getting asked the same thing. So that's why I always try to bring other questions outside of, yes, yeah. So I got called to do the movie, and yeah, that's how that came about. We filmed for 6 weeks, so that's why I try to like do those other questions. But I
Oh,
think
so
just
when you interview them, they've been interviewed all day.
sometimes, in some cases, if it's a press junket day or if it's like a press day, a media day, yes. And they go back and forth between either being in a press room, sometimes they'll have an event, and then they'll come back and do more interviews, or they'll go from being on Zoom to being like at a roundtable discussion. So it's literally to jumping on a call for radio or going to radio. They literally try to squeeze so much in a short amount of time, in certain aspects. And then there's certain
Mm.
aspects where it's not a media day and they give you all the flexibility and you got to wheel them back in. This okay, we still on this question. Okay, it's 10 minutes and we still talking about this. So yeah.
So, as a journalist, like, what is your goal? So, as a podcaster, right? Like, I know, and things have changed, right? So, like, when I first started the podcast, it was really more for me as a hobby to have almost like this time capsule of just like my thoughts. Like, so I would read all of these books, like, I consume so much content. I just wanted a place to have all of my thoughts of just like, why is the world round? So if you go back to some of my earlier interviews, I'm just like preaching, like Jesus is my savior. He should be yours. It's just like hilarious. And so then it like slowly turns into a season where some of it's all interviews, some of it's more just like educational. And so now it's more like topical. So like this season I said is more okay, I wanted to have this theme of I wanted it to align with the model that I'm developing based off the book that I'm writing. And so it's all like a little bit more strategic, right? So it's like everybody that I'm interviewing, I want their life story. I want to understand like how they've mastered themselves, how they've gotten their skill set and their superpower, how they're impacting the world. And that's like how luckily the interviews have been going. But that's I get to own that based off like the questions that I'm asking. So when you're doing as a journalist working from a media outlet, like what is the goal as you're navigating these different spaces?
I would say so I think it depends. So sometimes we'll reach out to somebody or somebody will reach out to us with their own specific goal in mind. This person has a new book and we want to talk about it.
Okay.
Or this person has a new clothing line, we want to talk about it. But again, it goes into, instead of asking, how does this collaboration come up with Nordstrom? Asking how fashion is a part of your overall well being, how fashion is a reflection of one's personality, just asking other questions outside of the basics. And then, or if it's like a commemorative day or holiday, then we try to focus on that. June is Black Music Month. So what is your approach to making timeless music? We're coming up on 25 years of your initial album and it's still on the charts. TikTok has taken off with your song. So what is your approach to making timeless music? So we'll focus on the theme for the month.
So your actual skill set is trying to ask dynamic questions to get the best concise answers out of people. Is that the skill set, would you
Yes.
say? Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
some people do it better than others, I'm
For
assuming.
sure. For sure. Because also, even I love like the interviews where I'm the interviewer, but then after they answer, I'm like, I gotta write that down. I didn't think about that. Thank you. I'm like,
Right.
oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Those are interviews when it
Mhm.
causes me to think, and I'm like, interesting. Didn't think about that. But yes, but sometimes even like when I reach out to, for instance, Nikki Giovanni, I dressed up as Nikki Giovanni when I was in second grade. So that has like always been like a dream interview, and I interviewed her twice. And so the one interview for this is like going back to the career, in terms of building my career back up. So she was teaching, was it UVA, University of Virginia? But I reached out to her because she had her .edu online because she was a professor. So I reached out to her, asked her if I could interview her. She's, oh yeah, sure. When you want to come? And I was like, oh, okay. She was like, is this gonna be a phoner or what is it? I'm like, Nikki Giovanni, I'm flying there. So I used my own money and just did like a 24-hour trip, rented a car, went to Best Buy, got like a little speaker so I could put on her. Went and got my little tripod for my iPhone because I had no place to place it. I just wanted to interview. But then I just got the interview done, and then I was able to place it afterwards. So I started like doing things like that and just being transparent with certain people. I don't know. I'm trying to figure. I'm a freelancer. We'll figure it out. But one of the things that she did tell me, and I think that also helped my approach in terms of purchasing this newspaper with my sister, I said, I don't know, I'm just a writer. And she was like, pause. Like she stopped everything she was doing. She was like, you are not just a writer. You are a business and you need to treat yourself as such. It's like, oh, okay. And so she started talking about her career in terms of turning her poems into poetry books. In terms of, she gave me the idea. She said, how about you start, when you're getting all of these interviews, have 2 staple questions that are outside of the publications that you write for that are just for you. And then you can create a book like A Mother's Love. Here's from 10 athletes on what they had to say about a mother's love throughout their career journey. And so I started doing that. So I always make sure I ask people like 1 or 2 questions that are just for me. And then I have it like on the back end to develop like more quality content and to be able to put it out myself. She was like, because then you can put it out yourself, and that's part of the business aspect. And then she started talking about me about trademarking and different. And I'm like, I just thought I was a writer. She's like,
Yeah.
this is your career. This is a business, and we're going to treat it as such. You are a business. You are a walking business. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think that is the evolution of a real grown person that understands that companies come and go, publishers come and go, the economy will go up and down. But when you are, especially in a field where you're creative, you have to be your own brand, right? And I think that's something that I've recognized even as a coach or whatever I am at this point. I have so many creative entities that a lot of the work that I do, the economics of it all changes. Like people can have you on a contract one day and you're gone, but you're still your brand. So you have to be able to navigate it and have the legal structure to do so in the way where you're like, hey, I'm Alena Conley Corporation. I'm navigating as such. And so that's great advice. Shoot, I'm going to take that advice today.
No, it was. Like, no, seriously, after that literally got my like wheels, turning. And then when I was signing contracts, I have 2 sisters who are attorneys, but the one who I bought the newspaper with, that was one of the things she always you need to read these contracts to make sure that when you're the one securing the interviews, make sure this content is yours, or you can use it elsewhere outside of just that particular publication. I'm like, I'm just trying to get this $500, so I don't. I just
Yeah, 500. I know that's right. Listen,
exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation. I'm sure that we're going to definitely have you back, as you're going to be bringing so much to the world with this whole new business that you got. You're going to be learning so much as a business owner. You're going to come back in a year like, Alena, why you didn't tell me? I'm going to be like, girl, listen, you ain't asked me.
Right. I'm already learning so much. It's just, yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. Where can people find you online?
You can visit our website at buckeyereview.com. And you can also find me on all social media at Dontaira Terrell.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to yet another episode of The Reminder Remedy. And we will see you all on the other side.
Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of The Reminder Remedy. If you haven't already, be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Reminder Remedy, as well as my personal page at Alena Conley. And check out our latest workshops and resources at The Reminder Remedy.